I didn't mean to end up in daring Wyoming. It wasn't on my map, my GPS, or any travel itinerary. I'd left Chicago 4 days earlier, a half-packed car, and an email reading, "We regret to inform you," still fresh in my inbox. I wasn't sure where I was heading, just away. Somewhere quieter, greener, slower. Somewhere I wouldn't feel like a failure walking into every corner store. The plan was to reach Portland by next week. I'd booked a cheap Airbnb near Boise and was going to wing the rest. But the roads got confusing somewhere near Rollins. I don't think I took a wrong turn, at least not in the traditional sense. The GPS stuttered, recalculated 3 times, then froze on a map with no roads. The screen said driving on unnamed road. The horizon stretched as far as I could see. Golden plains, pale blue sky, and a winding 2-lane road that never curved quite where expected. And then there was daring. I didn't see a sign. No gas station, no welcome to. Just a row of mailboxes sticking out of the dry earth, and a cracked road that led into a town that shouldn't have been there. I was low on gas, and an ache in my chest had started turning into something I couldn't ignore anymore. Panic, maybe. Or just too many hours driving with nothing but thoughts about my last argument with Nicole and the job I lost by stubbornly refusing to play politics. So I turned in. The first thing I noticed was how old everything looked, but not decrepit. Just paused, like someone had built this town in the 1950s and decided that was enough progress for one lifetime. Rusted trucks parked in front lawns, white fences curling at the corners, storefronts with hand-painted signs. What the internet would call aesthetic. But Deering wasn't quaint. It was quiet. So quiet it scratched the back of my brain. The only place that looked open was a general store. Brick building with windows too clean and an American flag that hung perfectly still, even though I could feel the wind on my skin. I stepped out, letting the door creak shut behind me. The air was thin, dry, and somehow heavier than it should have been. The woman behind the counter looked at me before I'd even spoken. She was older, with neat silver hair, and a stillness to her that felt like it came from a different century. "You're passing through?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, though I wasn't so sure anymore. "Needed gas, maybe a place to sleep." "There's no gas till morning," she told me. "Pumps dry at this hour." "All right. Is there a motel or something?" "There's the Carrick Inn across from City Hall. Rooms are cheap. Take room 3. "You don't want my name or credit card?" She gave a soft shrug. "We'll sort it out in the morning." I should have left then. Should have taken it as a sign that the only town I've ever seen without prices or a check-in process was not where I should be sleeping. But my head hurt, and the idea of lying down in a quiet room instead of under yellow bug-smeared headlights at a truck stop sounded like heaven. So I took room 3. It wasn't much. Bed, tiny desk, a fan that oscillated with a wheezing creak. But the sheets were clean, the plumbing worked, and someone had left a wrapped peppermint on the pillow. I nearly missed the envelope on the dresser. Long, white, sealed with red wax. My name was printed at the center. Matthew Langley. I stared at it for a full minute, not because the name was wrong, but because I hadn't told anyone in this town who I was. Inside, there was a single typed page, centered a small serif font. Welcome to Deering. Visitors are expected to follow local protocol. Failure to comply may result in harm. Please observe the following. Do not leave your room between 10:33 p.m. and 3:17 a.m. If you hear scratching or whispering at the door during this time, do not respond. Keep your curtains drawn during the night. Do not look outside after sundown. If you hear footsteps in the hallway after 11:11 p.m., turn out all lights and lie still. You're allowed one question per night. Ask it aloud before sleeping. It may be answered. Sleep well. I read that note 6 times. The language was polite, formal, as though this sort of warning was just common hospitality here. I laughed out loud. Protocol? It had to be a gimmick. Room 3 and its custom welcome letter. Probably a local in-joke to freak out weary road trippers. Like that urban legend about the hotel that asked if you'd feed the hallway baby. But the unease these rules stirred in my stomach didn't fade as easily as the humor. I almost left then. Almost. But the bed looked more comfortable than the driver's seat of a Civic. And truth be told, I'd grown far too used to not asking questions. So I changed, brushed my teeth, and lay down, telling myself I was just being paranoid. The distance between "this is stupid" and "what if it's not" might be 6 inches on a page, but it lasted 2 hours in my mind. The fan clicked every 17 seconds. The light from the hallway leaked under the door like a knife. I tried to sleep, but then, around 11:15, I heard it. The soft sound of footsteps. Not hurried, not heavy. Just slow, casual, with a kind of rhythm you almost miss if you aren't listening. I didn't move. Not because I believed the letter, but because some slivered ancient part of my brain, had turned on like a smoke alarm. The steps paused outside my door. Creak, click, 9 seconds of silence. Then a whisper. Not a voice, not words, just breath, shaped like language. I reached for the lamp and froze. If you hear footsteps in the hallway After 11:11 p.m., turn out all lights and lie still. The page had whispered back to me without needing voice. So I lay there, frozen, eyes squeezed shut. The fan moaned softly. For 10 full minutes, nothing happened. And then, the doorknob turned slowly. Not enough to open. Just softly. A test. My breath caught in my throat. I could hear my heartbeat pounding for miles. Then silence again. When I finally blinked, it was 3:21 a.m. I kept every light on until dawn. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Not in any real sense. My eyes may have closed for a few seconds at a time, but every time they did, some imperceptible sound, the creak of wood, a shift in pressure, a barely there breath just outside the window, would snap them open again. The fan kept its rhythmic complaint, like it too was waiting for something to happen, or watching. By the time the sky shifted from black to blue, I was already dressed and packed, sitting in the lobby of the Carrick Inn with my keys dangling from one hand. But there wasn't a front desk, no staff, no sign of life anywhere inside the building. The only hint of anyone else in town was a thin curl of smoke from a chimney across the road and the green light in the general store window reading "Open." I stepped out into the morning. The cold sharper than I remembered. It hadn't snowed, but the frost on the mailbox outside room 3 was thick and crystalline. The bells over the door jingled softly as I re-entered the store. The same silver-haired woman stood behind the counter. She looked up once, gave a single nod. Room was fine? Her voice was dry, but not unkind. I hesitated. Yeah, mostly. I didn't know how to ask what I really wanted to without sounding insane. I reached into my pocket and unfolded the typed page. Her eyes flicked down. Ah, you got room 3. What, is this some kind of prank? She tilted her head. Did anything happen? I heard footsteps. Something turned my doorknob. There were whispers. She didn't flinch, didn't even blink. Then the letter worked. That's it? I asked. No explanation, just good thing it didn't kill you. And that's the end of the conversation. You followed the rules, she said. That's all that matters. I stood there, trying to articulate something coherent. Anger, disbelief, demand. But nothing came out. After a pause, she slid a brown paper bag across the counter and said, "You'll want to visit the diner. 2 blocks north. Ask for Harold. Tell him you made it through your first night." I furrowed my brow. Why would I? Because he'll give you the next set of rules. The diner, was exactly where she said it would be. A long silver building with mirrored windows and a rusted neon sign that flickered to life as I approached. Inside, there were only two people: an old man wiping down the counter and a middle-aged guy in a brown jacket, sipping black coffee in silence. I slid into a stool near the end. The counter guy leaned in before I could speak. "You're the one in room 3? "Yeah." He reached under the bar without looking, pulled out a letter-sized envelope, and slid it toward me like it was nothing. "You passed," he said. "So now you make a choice." "I don't understand. What are you people even talking about?" He gave me a tired smile. "Nobody ever does at first. Most think we're weird, crazy even. But deep down, they feel it. They know this place isn't like the rest." "What is it? A cult? A simulation? Hell?" "It's a town," he said with a shrug. "Just a town. But it's got a past, and maybe that past never really left." He walked to the back to fetch more coffee. I stared at the envelope. Unlike the first one, this one didn't have my name. Just the words. Level 2 protocol typed carefully at the center. I opened it with fingers that felt colder than they should have been. "Welcome to stage 2. The fact that you are reading this means you observed the previous rules and survived your first night. This suggests you may be capable of assimilation. Before that can be determined, new protocols must be met. Please adhere strictly. Between dusk and dawn, do not whistle indoors. If you hear your own voice from another room, leave the building immediately. The man in the red coat will pass through town around 4:09 p.m. Do not acknowledge him. Dogs endearing do not bark. If one barks at you, go inside and turn on a fan. Do not look at it again. Once per day, someone you meet will speak a sentence meant only for you. Do not ignore it. Write it down. Assimilation is a choice. Compliance is survival. Welcome to Deering. Town Watch." I read it again, then again. None of it made sense. And yet I knew in the marrow of my bones, that every damn word mattered. I ordered coffee I didn't drink and sat for 20 minutes pretending I could normalize any of it. Harold ignored me until I stood to leave. He glanced up at the clock and casually asked, "What color was his coat?" I froze. It was 4:11 p.m. A man in a red coat had passed the diner window less than 5 minutes ago. I hadn't even thought twice about him until now. "I didn't look at him," I said slowly, truthfully. "Good," Harold said, not smiling. "Still on the path." "Path to what?" I asked. He didn't answer. Back in my car, the impulse to run bloomed hot and hard. Just start the engine. Drive out. Forget it ever happened. But when I pulled up maps again, the road out of Deering was still labeled unnamed. The GPS pin never moved. I swear, I mean this literally. I drove for 20 minutes straight in one direction, never turned, never changed lanes. When I glanced at the clock, it was 6:12 p.m. And when I looked up, I was back in front of the Carrick Inn. Same cracked mailbox, same frost, same impossible loop. I returned to room 3 out of pure exhaustion. To my surprise, another peppermint had been placed on the pillow and a notepad. At the top, handwritten in neat looping letters. For the sentence, "Don't forget." Underneath, a ballpoint pen with no cap. Almost angrily, I scrawled, "Assimilation is a choice. Compliance is survival." If this was a joke, it was too well organized to be anything short of obsessive. The sunset bled purple and gold through the curtains. I shut them tight, double-checked the lock, and waited. Waited for the footsteps, waited for my voice to come from the other room, waited for the inevitable. Just after 9 p.m., something shifted in the room. A subtle dip in the air pressure. The fan slowed for 3 rotations, then resumed its usual struggle. I lay on the bed and whispered, "Why me?" Maybe it was my one question for the night. Maybe no one heard. But at 1:03 a.m., the radiator began to hum. And I swear to God, just under the wind-whistling pitch, I heard a voice whisper back, "Because you never mattered enough to be missed." I almost screamed, almost opened the damn window, just to breathe. But I didn't, because the curtain stayed closed and I wasn't ready to die in daring, not yet. The next morning brought the wind, not a breeze, and not the dry hush that had lived under every moment since I arrived. This was different, harsher, faster. It pressed on the windows like a fist, howling through the streets before the sun even rose. I sat upright in bed, half breathless, scanning the room for something wrong. But nothing was out of place. Until I saw the message on the notepad. The one I'd written the night before. The sentence about compliance being survival was gone. Not scratched out, not erased. Just replaced. The new words, still in my handwriting, were, "Do not speak to what wears your face." I dropped the pen before I realized I was holding it. The words had not been there when I went to sleep. My mind couldn't account for it. No footsteps, no voices, no memory of waking up and writing it. Just proof I'd been altered in the night, or visited. Panic rose up in me like bile. I scrambled to pack my things, heart pounding sickly fast. I remember thinking, maybe if I don't look at the clock. The rules don't apply yet. Maybe this is still just morning, still normal. But when I swung the motel door open onto the street, I felt it in my skin. that I wasn't allowed to leave yet. There were no people in sight. But the town felt full, like every window had eyes behind it, like silence had shape. I closed the door again, more slowly this time, and tried to breathe. By lunchtime, the wind had faded. At 12:46 p.m., as I walked toward the diner, hopeful for a voice of reason, I passed a child with green eyes sitting on the curb by the post office. He smiled at me, then said, "Don't forget your dreams. They're not yours in this place." The line meant nothing. Except oh no, it didn't come from him. I watched his lips. He didn't move them a second time, didn't blink. He simply turned away and hummed a tune I couldn't identify. That was the sentence that day. The one meant only for me. It haunted me more than I expected. Inside the diner, Harold wasn't at the counter today. Instead, a man I hadn't met, a broad-shouldered, gentle-eyed man in flannel, glanced up as I entered and said, "Sit where it feels safe, but only once." His tone was conversational, but every syllable sounded measured, intentional. I sat in the booth by the far window, the one that looked down Main Street, and caught just a glimmer of the gas station beyond. He brought me a plate of eggs I hadn't ordered and said nothing more. When he walked away, he left behind an envelope. This one was navy blue, gold print, no name, just a sticker seal that read, "Stage 3, Final Rules." I didn't want to open it. My hand shook the moment it touched the paper, because even before I read them, I knew they'd push everything further. The events were escalating. Deering was responding or preparing, and I was the test subject still. I opened it. The paper inside was thinner than the others, creased neatly. The words were centered in bold, all caps sans serif. Stage 3. Protocol. For retention level visitors only. You are now subject to the deeper patterns. These rules are compulsory. Do not sleep under mirrors. If your room has one, cover it entirely before sundown. If your clock runs backward, stay perfectly still for 60 seconds. Do not speak or move. If a stranger uses your full name between 2 and 4 a.m., call Town Watch immediately. Keys left where they don't belong may open new doors. Use caution. You only get to open 2. If you begin seeing windows where there were none before, leave. No exceptions. Do not return. Compliance with these protocols ensures survival. Departure remains impossible through standard methods. All exits are conditional. The way will open when the town chooses. You are being watched. Choose wisely. Town Watch, Final Issue. Deering Archives. I stared at the final line for nearly 3 minutes. Departure remains impossible through standard methods. I knew what it meant, but seeing it sentence after sentence, rule after rule, it drove the last nail in. I was trapped. Still, I remembered what Harold said. Leave when the way horses, the implication rang louder now. This wasn't about staying or going. It was about being prepared when the window opened. That night, I followed every rule. Covered the mirror with a towel. Made sure no clocks were visible. Left no keys in strange places. And I waited until 2:57 a.m. when I heard it. Not footsteps, not whispers, laughter. But it was mine, my laugh. It came from the bathroom, short, breathless, amused, familiar. I knew instantly that I hadn't made a sound, that it wasn't blood sugar or lack of sleep. Something in that room wore my voice like a jacket, like it fit into me. And then, without warning, the mirror I'd covered slid to the floor with a heavy, soft thump. Not shattered, just removed. I approached it slowly, not because I wanted to, but because some part of me was caught in the gravity of it. The same way you can't not turn when someone says your name. The towel lay on the floor, crumpled but clean. And the mirror? The mirror showed me, but not now. Behind my reflection, the bed was made, the window was open, the studio spotless. I reached out, and the reflection turned away before I could touch it. I turned away. In the mirror, I stumbled back, bile rising up my throat. My legs shook, my skin burned. Then, behind me, outside the mirror, something touched my shoulder. I didn't turn, because I remembered. Do not speak to what wears your face. I stood there, breath hitched, paralyzed, feeling fingers rest on me, slide down my jacket, cold as frost and just as thin. Then the pressure vanished. I didn't sleep. At dawn, the mirror was back in place, covered again, and the towel was folded. By the fourth day, I stopped pretending it was temporary. The denial had peeled off like skin under heat. What remained was raw, instinct-driven acceptance. My car, still parked outside under a growing sheet of grime, refused to turn over. The stores had what I needed, but never what I wanted. Time slipped strangely. I'd blink, and it would be 3 p.m., then calm down for what felt like hours, only to find it was 3:04. That morning, the general store clerk, I'd never heard her name, gave me a coffee with her usual deadpan grace. As she turned, she said, don't trust the birds today. That wasn't the sentence, not the one meant for me. I knew because at 1:04 p.m., a teenage girl in a green hoodie walked past on my side of the street and muttered, "The window opens with breath, not effort." I wrote it down in the margins of the only notebook I hadn't burned. Somewhere between the diner and room 3, the wind returned, heavy and low, almost electrical. It carried the smell of iron and something older, unearthly, the kind of scent you encounter in basements you weren't supposed to find. The motel room greeted me with silence. That day, nothing was moved. The mirror was still covered, the window shut and latched. But deep under the hum of the fan, there was something else. Breathing. Slow. Measured. Almost beneath the frequency of sound itself. I considered ignoring it. Then I remembered. Ignore nothing. That wasn't an official rule, but it had become mine. The breathing continued, and I followed it. Not by sound, but feeling. The way you somehow know where a noise would come from, even if it's silent. It led me to the other side of the closet. A space I hadn't noticed behind the hanging clothes. Behind them, when I pushed the wall, I felt metal. A door, narrow, cold. I didn't have a key, but my room key, room 3, was missing from my pocket. Instead, a bone-colored key with the number 0 carved into it sat in my hand. I don't remember picking it up. The key fit the door. It opened noiselessly into a stairwell that dropped in impossible spirals. I descended. Not because I was brave, but because the window might be down there. Not a glass pane, the way. It didn't look like an exit, just another door. But when I opened it, I saw the town from above. Deering laid out in unnatural symmetry, too perfect, too gridded. Nothing living moved. No people, no wind, only stillness. And then, across the street, in the mirror of a window not there before, I saw myself inside a home I'd never been in. Smiling, table clean. My own reflection handed a letter to someone I couldn't see. The envelope read, "Assimilated." Then it looked up at me, into me. The smile broke and my mirror self mouthed the word, "Run." I slammed the door and sprinted back through the winding stair. Except the stair was gone. Behind me, the path had become flat, stretching with televisions instead of walls. Each screen showed another version of me failing to escape, breaking the rules, letting it in, letting it speak. And beyond that, knocking. In a rhythm I now knew like a second heartbeat. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 more. Except this time, it was inside the room where I just come from. I whispered the only thing I could think. "River." No one answered. I ran anyway. I don't know how I found the way. At 3:06 a.m., I was back in my room, room 3, heart in my throat, all the lights off. In the distance, a train horn. This one vibrated, real, heavy. The window, the real window, was opening. I didn't stop to grab anything, just keys, wallet, and the letter with my sentence scrawled across the back. Downstairs, the door had been propped open with a stone I'd never seen before. Cold air poured through like a scream. My car sat right under the street lamp. Clean. Engine idling. Frederick stood quietly beside it, like he belonged to another story. He didn't speak, just nodded once. And I drove. The train crossed the outskirts as I turned onto the unnamed road. This time, it had beginning and end. My GPS pinged alive. I didn't look back until 10 miles out. When I did, Deering was gone. Only fields, sky, and the faintest impression of a door-shaped shadow in the road behind me. I never published what happened, never wrote it down until now. Because lately I dream of windows, on walls that shouldn't have them, and mirrors that show a room I don't recognize. And sometimes, late at night, I hear the fan turning exactly every 17 seconds. If you've driven west through Wyoming and come to a fork that your GPS can't explain, turn around. Because once you see Deering, it sees you. And the town has rules, but it only gives you the rules once. It's been 6 weeks. 6 weeks since I left Deering. Since the train carried me across that 5-minute window and away from the place that almost convinced me I didn't exist. I wish I could say it's over. I really do. For the first week, I drove west with a kind of frantic momentum. Like if I stayed in one spot too long, something would catch up with me. I changed motels every night, paid in cash, never used the same coffee shop twice. Sometimes I woke up in the middle of the night, heart racing, absolutely certain I'd hear it 3 knocks. Spaced, measured, familiar, but nothing came. The dreams didn't start until week 2. The first one felt almost normal. I was back in Chicago, eating dinner with Nicole like none of it had happened. But behind her, in the mirror above the bar, I was still seated deep inside room 3, eyes open in the dark, watching myself pretend my life had gone back to normal. I woke up with the taste of dust in my mouth and a scratch on the back of my shoulder, like a single long fingernail had pressed against me all night. Since then, the dreams have deepened. They feel like transmissions, says, not episodes. Like someone or something is still testing me, even outside the town limits. They never repeat. But there are similarities. In every dream, there's a rule. Just one. A single instruction whispered at the end, sometimes scratched into the wall, sometimes etched inside mirrors I shouldn't be able to see. Here are a few I've written down. If the mailbox blinks, throw away your name. Never accept coffee from the man in grey. When the GPS says, recalculating more than 5 times, do not drive forward. If your voicemail is full of breathing, listen to the last message and obey it immediately. They make no sense individually, but I've stopped questioning whether they're real. Why? Because 3 days ago, I got a package. There was no return address, just a battered cardboard box on the doorstep of a San Jose Airbnb I'd booked under a fake name. Inside was a cassette recorder, very old, probably from the 80s. Taped to it was a torn piece of paper. Play it only between 3:07 and 3:12 a.m. Do not rewind. Do not share. I didn't change it for a day. I debated throwing it away, burning it, but curiosity is a dangerous comfort, especially when fear has become your home. So that night, I set an alarm. At 3:07 a.m., exactly, I hit play. The recording hissed. Then, faintly, I heard the sound of my own voice. Not a memory, not something I remembered saying during the Deering trip, but a current version of me. Now, it whispered, clear but emotionless. You left the building, but the building didn't leave you. Prepare for stage 4, then static, then 5 knocks. Not 3, 5. Each one closer than the last. The tape stopped at 3:11 a.m. Right on cue. I haven't pressed play again. I don't know if I can. It doesn't feel like the kind of message you get to repeat. Here's the truth I've come to accept. Deering isn't just a place. It's a point, a latch, a door between the visible map we trust and something more precise, more ancient, a place designed to test how well we follow instructions. And what happens when we don't? I followed the rules, I survived. But I've realized something lately. Something I can't shake. Some people are being invited back. Others are just recalled. I don't know which I am yet. But I woke up this morning with a small white envelope on my nightstand. No sound, no knock. Nothing to explain how it got there. It doesn't have my name. Just a title in thin black ink. Compliance Review. And tomorrow is 3:07 again. You can convince yourself it was a dream. A psychological break maybe. A metaphor even. That daring is just some story people tell to explore grief or trauma or paranoia. You can tell yourself that until your mirror stops showing you in real time, until your GPS takes you to the same street 3 times in a row when you're sure you're driving straight. until someone in a diner you've never seen before hands you a piece of paper with a single sentence typed out. This is your second broken rule. And all of a sudden, you're not just remembering daring anymore. You're back in it, without even having left your city. That's what they don't tell you. Daring isn't confined to borders or coordinates. It's an infection, a test, a signal you can't unhear once it's spoken your name. And once it knows you, really knows you, it waits for denial, for defiance, for distraction. Because the rules, they're not just written to protect you. They're designed to see who listens and who doesn't. So if you're still thinking this story is fiction, that you're safe, just pay attention to what knocks once the lights go out. Because if it knocks more than 3 times, it's already inside. And the worst part? You might be the one who let it in.